Welcome to another Samso Insights. We're here at the UWA Club in Crawley on the campus of University of Western Australia, our usual spot. Today we've got Sun Silver Limited here with us, an aspiring IPO on the ASX. The code is SS1. I've got Jared O'Donovan here with us, who's the Executive Director. The IPO is ongoing as we speak. It's live, I should say. And I believe it's going to be mid-May where you guys get on board.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Noel. We've actually closed the book.
Okay.
Yeah, so we announced that yesterday. We had a media release. We've been extremely well supported by both institutional investors and retail investors. Yeah. And yeah, as you mentioned, we're now looking forward to a mid-May listing date.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's it's best news for people like yourself.
Yeah, fantastic result for us and great work by all the team, by the lead broker and all the team behind Sun Silver.
Okay. And did you get the 10, 13?
I will be taking the maximum subscription.
Okay.
We'll be taking the 13 million. No, yeah.
Well, that's the best news for you
Yeah,
guys.
it's great.
Right? So what, market cap around 21.9 million, is that right?
25.
25 with the 13.
Yeah, 24.9, which will capitalise us, at that with 125 million shares on offer, no options, so very clean structure.
Okay. Look, highlights, and you can clarify if I made any mistakes. 292 million ounces of silver equivalent. 75% the US silver and gold come from where you guys are in Nevada.
Yep, correct.
So yeah, can you just obviously give us the rundown on?
Yeah, so 292 million ounces of silver equivalent, as you mentioned, at 72.4 grams per ton. So 176 million ounces of pure silver, and 1.37 million ounces of gold. So it's a silver gold asset, which is an important point. Location, as you mentioned, in Nevada, in the Carlin Trend, so a tier 1 jurisdiction that is notable for mining. Some of the biggest names in the world are operating in the region, notably Kinross, Coeur, Barrick. Kinross being 25 kilometers from our site with their Carlin mine, or Bald Mountain mine, apologies. And we're really close to a town called Elko. Geologically, we're in the Carlin Trend, so carbon to host rocks, like really good location, and really positive to bring a project to market with all those attributes.
Silver is not something the ASX is used to. In my 30 plus years, I don't think I've come across one apart from McPherson and silver mines, as you've mentioned. Why silver?
This hasn't been an overnight process. This has been 2 years in the making. We as a group have looked at the structural deficit that's been forming around silver over the last 4 years. Last year there was 1 billion ounces of silver produced with a demand of 1.2 billion ounces. So it's been steadily growing. And we formed a view that silver would be a critical metal required moving forward. Now, fundamentally, we believe that it's really going to be driven by industrial uses and predominantly solar. So the International Energy Agency has forecast that by 2027, solar will become the predominant form of renewable energy, the most dominant form of renewable energy. And not just renewable energy, but energy in general. That will surpass coal, hydro. And when you look at silver's uses in solar itself, silver makes up 23% of the material cost of a PV panel. So that's a significant cost of the raw material cost itself. And when you look at the United States, where we are, over the last 10 years, this use of silver in solar it's grown from 48 million ounces up to 160 million ounces last year. So it's exponentially growing. And technology is advancing, and new technologies which are coming to the fore using even more silver. So we believe silver, it's the metal that poses a critical risk to the expansion of solar in industrial uses. So we looked at all that, the macro market, and we formed a view in it, and we felt that there was an opportunity in silver, and specifically on the ASX, which is a great exchange, So we've found this asset, and we're lucky to have secured it, and we're now going to bring it to market.
It's interesting because I would say most people, me inclusive, look at silver and think it's a precious metal, and a lot of narratives out there tend to put it in the precious metals kind of scene. I never looked at it from an industrial scene. So I mean, I saw a talk of yours before, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realise it played such a big role. I think, you know, and you're quite right. Solar is going to be, I think, is going to be the bigger player. Whether it can create base load, but that's another story anyway. So I mean, the ASX is not used to this. And obviously now we know that you've already raised all the money, so there's support behind it. Do you feel that there's a lot more support now than before?
Yes, it's a bit of an educational piece. When you, as I said, when you outline the facts, people, it's very hard to argue with them. And yes, look, if you look at the ASX with respect to silver exposure, there's not a vast amount of companies that are working in the silver space. There is companies that have silver as a byproduct, but you know what sets Sun Silver apart is we're a pure play silver company that's bringing that opportunity to investors, and being located in the United States as well. It's even better because the commitments they've made around investment in solar are huge. So you know, to meet their 2030 and 2045 targets, which are 30% and 45% of their electrical grid coming from solar, you know, that 2050 target will consume 98% of world silver reserves. So that's quite a lot. And yes, people have looked at it as a store of wealth and jewelry and other applications, but the trend is turning, and industrial uses are where silver is going to be required most moving forward.
Okay. So for you guys, obviously, you know, you've got the ounces and etc. What's your story? Are you more of a pathway to production? Are you try and resource it up, tighten it up? What's the journey?
So we have a JORC. Look, it's a globally significant asset. Like, people need to realise that in the scheme of things, when you look at tier 1 jurisdictions as we define them, we looked at assets with over 100 million ounces of pure silver in ground in low sovereign risk areas, and it essentially narrowed it down to Canada, America and Australia. So we have a JORC compliant resource inferred at this stage, which has had 200 holes and 60,000 meters of drilling done. So it's well advanced, but there's also a lot of exploration upside. It's open along strike and at depth, and we plan on adding ounces. Of the measured mineralization, only 60% of it currently sits within the resource. And that resource was calculated many years ago, utilizing, you know, metrics of $21.50 an ounce silver and $1,850 an ounce gold. We sit in different markets now, so we believe that there's optimization can be completed on the current resource. We believe through extensional drilling we can add more ounces, and we feel by infill drilling we can upgrade the classification. Okay. So first up, we believe we can add more ounces to grow that resource beyond the 292, and then we'll be looking at more developmental style activities as well, some metallurgical test work to understand, you know, what recoveries look like and what a processing route would look like. But first up, our focus is the asset and resource growth.
Okay. One of the thoughts I had, one of the narratives I sort of heard was the Mexican mines are tightening up and things like that. Is that something that you guys have factored in, or is that just talk out there?
100%. As I mentioned earlier, we looked at what we believe tier 1 jurisdictions are, and look, it is true. Vast amount of silver production comes from South American countries, but we've seen in other commodities and metals activities by governments and others to nationalize mines, and there's jurisdictional risk in those areas. So we felt, being in a state like Nevada, which was ranked number 1 by the Fraser Institute as a mining jurisdiction in 2022, having an asset that sits on federal land in a well-known area was a lower risk for us, with a view to moving this forward to a producing asset. So we definitely factored it in, and why we looked at America. And then also, you know, there's been trillions of dollars committed through the Inflation Reduction Act by the United States into investment in projects like Sun Silver. So we'll also be looking at activities such as silver paste studies. So silver paste is what's actually used within the solar PV panel due to its conductivity. It's a noble metal, it doesn't rust. So we feel there's opportunity there, and also some solar generation studies as well. So there's a couple of additional streams we'll be looking at in parallel to add value for shareholders.
Okay. You've already raised the money, pretty much the hard work's done. What's the news flow once you guys are up and running?
Yeah, so look, we've been extremely well supported, as I mentioned earlier, both by institutional and retail investors, and that's a measure of people's knowledge of silver now as well. So as I mentioned in your previous question, we have a definitive plan. So first up, we'll be looking at some desktop optimization work of the resource itself. You know, it's 2.4 kilometers long and it's 1.2 kilometers wide, so it's a big resource. It's got 125 million tons in the ground. We'll also be looking at infill drilling to increase the classification from inferred, and also that extensional drilling which I mentioned. You know, we want to add ounces. There's some very high grade intercepts outside of the existing pit shell, so we're going to chase those and understand what that looks like. So, and also the silver and solar paste studies I mentioned earlier. So aligned with what we said in our prospectus, they'll be the initial works we'll be doing, and we're looking forward to getting on the ground and doing those post-listing.
Okay. Look, there's a reason why you're talking to me, because I like the story. I looked at what you guys were doing. We did an article and you reached out. So to conclude, you know, you've already sold your soul. You've done the money. There's not much to sell now. It's just waiting for the gates to open for you to spend some money.
Yeah, so look, we're ready to do the work. We've got a fantastic team of people. I'm really well supported by my other board members, Dean Ersegovich, our non-executive chairman, and Nathan Marr. You know, Dean has heavily experienced ex-Primero. Nathan has actually built 2 silver plants around the world. He's a metallurgist. And we've got a gentleman on the ground in Nevada, Robert Anderson, who's worked in the Carlin Trend for the last, 17 years. So we're ready to go. As you said, we've raised the money, we've closed the book, we're finalising with the ASX, finalising the matters we require in order to set a listing date, and once that listing date comes around, we'll be all action and looking forward to it.
All right, well, congratulations, and look, we hope to follow your story, and we'll, I'm sure when you guys start listing, we'll see more news flow.
Yeah, thanks Noel. No doubt we'll definitely have plenty of news flow.
All right, thank you.
Cheers.